For many of you, this class will be a familiar, well-loved flow because it comes from our Oh My Yoga Academy intensive training. And this is our class flow 1. So whether you are a recent graduate or just someone that wants to practice along with us or someone that's getting ready to take our training in the future, I hope that you find this useful and enjoy your practice. So begin by coming down onto your back. We'll begin here on our backs with a basic 3-part breath. Filling up and expanding your belly, your ribs, and your chest. Expanding the body 3-dimensionally. Once you feel settled and grounded, begin to alternate your legs, bringing one knee into your chest as you inhale and bringing your opposite knee into your chest as you exhale. You can even add a little abdominal work here by curling your upper torso up off the mat. Once you're feeling even and balanced on both sides of the body, gently lower yourself down to knees to chest and rock from side to side. From here, we'll set up for a rolling bridge, rolling our shoulders back, rounding them into the mat, and reaching down, seeing if you can touch your heels here. It's okay if they're a little further out, but bring them in towards your tailbone. We'll press into the hands and feet, and then slowly roll up into bridge. As you roll down, do so one vertebra at a time, peeling down onto your mat rather than setting your back down all in one piece. You can inhale as you roll your bridge up and exhale as you roll back down. If you'd like, you could even start adding some arms, reaching them up overhead to the ground behind you each time that you lift up into bridge and lowering them down by your sides each time that you lower back down. Continue to flow at your own breath's pace. It doesn't have to match mine. Let your own breath guide your movement. When you're finished, draw your knees again into your chest. You can rock from side to side or circle your knees on the ceiling. Eventually, allow your knees to fall over to one side and bring your top hand down to the earth. Use that top hand to press into the ground and slowly make your way up to a seated position. From here, we'll move into some seated cat-cow. Breathing in deeply to sit up tall. And as we exhale, we'll tuck the tail, round the back, and rock back with the pelvis. As we breathe in, we'll lift the chest, lift the gaze, and come into a gentle back bend. Exhaling to round. Inhaling to extend. Keep going with those. I'll turn to the side so that you can see the spinal movements from this direction. And we'll just do one more of each of those. From here, we'll begin to move into some side bend stretches. Reaching the arms out into a T shape and bringing one hand down to the floor beside your body. Let the other arm reach up and overhead or even slightly across the body. Make your way back to center and switch directions. Continue flowing at your own pace. You might inhale each time that you get to the center and exhale every time you reach up and over. Inhaling to the center, exhaling up and over. Or you might decide to move this a little bit more quickly, inhaling as you reach to one side and exhaling as you come all the way back to the other. Whatever you choose, just follow your own breath rhythm. When you're feeling even and balanced on both sides of the body, make your way back to center. And from here, we'll move into a tabletop position, or all fours. Just like we did some cat-cow from our seated position, we'll do some now from this all fours position. So begin with a nice deep breath to prepare. And then slowly begin to tuck your tail and round your spine. Begin to lift the heart, lift the chest, and lift the gaze. And continue moving through those two spinal positions. Eventually, make your way back to a neutral spine. From here, we'll move into a spinal balance, alternating the arm that's outstretched in the front and the leg that's outstretched in the back. So begin by reaching your right arm forward and the left leg back. Once you've found your support here and you're feeling steady, slowly bring everything back down. And switch. This time your left arm will go forward and your right leg will reach back. Eventually bring all of that down and now start to flow and move with your own unique breath pace. Inhaling as you reach forward and exhaling as you return to the mat. When you're feeling even and balanced, take just a little extra space between your knees and drift all the way back to child's pose, sitting down onto your heels. From here, we'll get ready to shift into a gentle plank flow, moving right from your child's pose, settling into the finger pads and the heels of your hands, and shifting forward into a kneeling plank. Shift back when you're ready. You might inhale as you shift to plank, and exhale as you move back to child's. If you'd like to, you can even add a little triceps push-up here. This time, we'll take that push-up all the way down to our bellies. And we'll roll up through the spine, coming into cobra. When you're ready, lower the head and press back through the hands, pulling back to child's. We'll take a few more of those kneeling vinyasas. Coming through to kneeling plank, taking a little extra shift forward and hovering down. Rolling up to cobra pose. Lowering. And then ending in child's. And do that one more time, right along with your own breath rhythm. From here, we're going to move into our first downward facing dog of this practice. So before you go, check in with your hands and make sure that you've built a steady foundation. Maybe your middle fingers are pointing forward, or maybe your hands are turned out ever so slightly, so that it's more like your index fingers are pointing forward. Put a little weight into each finger pad and into the heels of your hands. And when you feel ready, tuck your toes and pull all the way back to downward facing dog. Since this is our first downward facing dog in this practice, it might feel really good to take a few bicycle legs and pedal it out. When you feel ready, come back into stillness and look forward towards the front of your mat. We're going to head all the way to the top of the mat. You can walk to get there or step into your lunge and follow with your back foot. When you arrive at the top of your mat, take a little halfway lift and then slowly hinge down into your forward bend. Stay here for about a breath. And then put a generous bend in your knees, plant into your feet, and rise up to extended mountain. We'll bring the hands to heart center and take a moment here in mountain posture. From here, we'll continue to move with the breath as we flow between extended mountain and chair. So we'll inhale and reach up towards the sky. And exhale to lower down to chair. Continue with these at your own breath rhythm. You might even begin to add a little back extension each time that you come up through extended mountain. By now you might be feeling that you're building some heat, and we're going to build even more by moving into sun salutations. Let's begin with the hands right in front of the chest and take a breath. From here, we'll reach up to extended mountain, and then hinge from the hips to come down to forward fold. Take a little halfway lift and step back with your right foot. This first round we'll do everything kneeling, so bring your knee down to the ground and then follow with the other foot, coming back to child's. We'll shift right from there into kneeling plank. This is going to look a lot like what we did before, that kneeling vinyasa. Hover all the way down to the earth. And roll up to cobra. Press back from there to child's pose. And then tuck your toes and lift into your downward facing dog. From here, we'll step the right foot forward, pausing in lunge, and step the other foot forward to your halfway lift. Take your bow, hinging down into forward bend, and then plant into your feet to rise all the way up to extended mountain or a gentle back bend. We'll end in mountain pose with our hands right at the center of the chest. Now let's do that whole thing again, leading with the left leg. Inhaling to reach up. Exhaling to forward bend. Take a little look ahead and come back to your kneeling lunge, and then all the way back to child's. Shift through to plank. Hover all the way to the earth. And roll up to cobra. Lowering back down. And then pressing back to child's. Tuck your toes and lift up to downward facing dog. Then step your left foot forward to lunge. If it doesn't get all the way to the front of the mat, you can use your hand to help it along. Follow with the back foot, taking a little halfway lift, and then hinging down to fold. Press down into the feet to rise up, coming into a gentle back bend, and returning to mountain. Take a breath. We'll do one more round of sun salutations, but this time I'll show you a little bit higher option where we can keep the knees up off the ground. Begin by inhaling and reaching up to extended mountain and exhaling to forward bend. Take a little lift with your gaze and step back with your right leg. This time we'll keep the knee up off the ground and step back into a high plank. We'll take a little shift forward from here and hover halfway down into Chaturanga Dandasana. Untuck the toes and lift up with knees off the ground into upward facing dog. From here, retuck your toes and pull back to downward facing dog. Take 1, 2, or 3 breaths here. When you're ready to step forward, lead with your right foot, coming back into your high lunge, and then following with the left leg, halfway lift. Take your bow, coming down to forward fold, and then press all the way up into your back bend. And again, we'll end in mountain pose. So we'll go through that whole thing, leading with the left leg. Inhaling to reach up, exhaling to fold. Taking a little lift and stepping back with the left, following with the right. Shifting forward, hovering down, coming to the tops of the feet, and then pulling back to downward facing dog. When you feel ready, look forward and step the left leg forward and follow with the right. Take your bow and press all the way through one more back bend. Return to mountain pose. Take a moment here just to check in and see how you feel. Hopefully your body temperature is a little bit warmer and you're feeling just a little more limber. Maybe your mental chatter has settled down just a little bit. You can begin to circle out your shoulders as we prepare for a standing camel posture. When you feel ready, take a nice big shoulder roll and bring your fists right to your sacrum. That's the area below the curve of your lower back. We'll stay here for 3, 4, or even 5 rounds of breath, depending on the pace that you're breathing. And then as if you're doing an abdominal curl, slowly make your way back to mountain pose. From here, we'll counter that with a forward fold, but we'll keep the shoulders back and the chest expanded by clasping the hands behind our backs. Lift up long through the spine and feel free to put a little bend in your knees here. When you're ready, hinge down from your hips, reaching the tops of your hands towards the ceiling above you. After several breaths in that chest expanded forward fold, release your hands and let them float down to the ground. You can bring them to the floor in front of you, or you can even take a grip around your big toes, using your peace fingers and allowing your palms to face each other. Take a little halfway lift and then slowly bend forward, letting your elbows come out to the sides.
Once you've had enough time here, release your toes and let your hands slide up the shins into a halfway lift. Pausing here. From here, we'll take the hands all the way up to the thighs and hinge back to our standing position. Arriving back at the top of the mat in mountain. We're going to move into our warrior sequence next. So keep your right foot at the front of your mat and take a step back with your left foot. You'll have some space from side to side between your feet. So it's really just a straight step back if you started with feet hip width distance apart. In Warrior One, aim for pointing your back toes around the front corner of your mat. So your foot is turned at a 45-degree angle rather than all the way to the side of your mat. You might keep your hands right in front of the chest, or you can reach your hands and your arms up overhead. Eventually, we'll bring the hands back down to the center of the chest and then down to the hips. We're just checking in here to make sure that the hips are fairly squared towards the front of the mat. We're going to get ready for pyramid pose, which involves straightening the front leg or at least taking some of the bend out of the front knee. Once you've done that, stand up tall as you breathe in deeply and hinge from your hips to make your way down, either to blocks or to your mat. Allow your head and neck to release here so that your gaze point is your own back leg. After you've taken a few deep breaths here, start to prepare to rise up. You might first put a little softness in your front knee, and then circle sweep all the way back to Warrior One. From here, we'll bring the hands down to the center of the chest and take a strong step forward with the back foot, returning to mountain. When you feel ready, we'll do that same sequence of 2 postures on the other side. So this time, keep your left foot forward and take a straight step back with your right leg, coming into Warrior One. Again, you might reach your arms up overhead, or you can choose to keep your hands right in front of your chest. Keep your front knee deeply bent and feel a lengthening and a stretch in the back leg. Now let's get ready for pyramid. Straightening the front leg and hinging from the hips. Maybe you pause halfway or bring your hands down to some blocks or all the way down to your mat. When you're ready to return, put a little bend in your front knee. Press strongly into your front foot and come back to Warrior One. Settle there for a breath or two. And then come back to mountain. We're going to keep the right foot forward and return to that warrior one posture on the first side. So when you're ready, step your left foot back, just pausing as a brief stop over here in warrior one. Noticing again that your back foot is pointing towards the front corner of your mat, and your hips and your feet have some space between them from side to side. Now we'll use this to transition into a longer stance warrior pose, warrior two. So right from where you are, back your back foot up and step it in towards the center so that your back heel or your back arch is aligned with your front heel. For warrior two, we'll reach our arms out into a T shape and slowly turn your head so that your gaze is over your front hand. Again, our front knees are bent and our back legs are long. From here, we're perfectly set up to go into a triangle posture. So begin by straightening your front leg and then take a little reach forward as if you're trying to reach out over the front of your mat. We'll then hinge down and hold the shin, or if you've got a block handy, you could place your hand on the block, or you can keep both hands open for a little extra core challenge. You might look down towards your front foot, or look straight out ahead, like I'm doing now. Or for an extra balance challenge, you could try looking up at your top hand. When you're feeling complete, slide the bottom hand all the way up the leg and return to warrior two. Taking a full deep breath. And then we'll get ready to come all the way down to the ground for an optional vinyasa. So bring your front hand to your hip and let your back arm swim up and over. Turn the back toes forward into a long lunge and make your way back to downward facing dog. If you need a rest here, feel free to drop your knees to the floor or wait in downward facing dog. Otherwise, you can come with me through a vinyasa, shifting to plank, hovering down, coming to upward facing dog, and then returning back to downward facing dog. When you feel ready, walk or step to the front of your mat. Taking a halfway lift and a forward bend. Press firmly into your feet and circle sweep all the way up to extended mountain. Returning your hands right to the front of your chest. Take a breath. We'll do that same sequence on the opposite side. So this time, keep your left foot forward and take a step back into your warrior one position. When you're ready to transition into that warrior two, turn your back toes out and move your back foot back. Again, your front heel might be aligned with your back arch here. we'll get ready for triangle by straightening the front leg, reaching forward and lowering down. Eventually, return to warrior two. Bring your front hand to your hip and reach up and over with your back arm, coming down to your lunge and stepping back to downward facing dog. Once again, feel free to wait here or even breathe in child's pose, or you can come with me through a vinyasa. This time, I'll show from the knees. Coming forward to a kneeling plank, lowering all the way down to the earth. Rolling up into cobra. Lowering back down. And then taking a few moments in child's. From here, let's tuck our toes and pull back to downward facing dog. This time we'll get into our warrior one by stepping right from downward facing dog. So take a nice big lift with your right leg and guide your foot to the space right between your hands. Your back foot might need to come forward just a little bit and to turn out. From here, you can walk up to your thigh with your hands or circle sweep all the way up to find your warrior one position. Once you feel settled here, find a steadying gaze point for warrior three. This is a standing balance posture, so there are lots of options. You could do it with your hands at heart center, with your arms overhead, with your arms out to the sides in an airplane position, or even with your hands on blocks. When you feel ready, take a breath to prepare and find balance on your front foot. Take a few breaths in your warrior three position and then return to warrior one. Eventually, step forward back to mountain pose. And you can simply switch sides, coming to your warrior one with the opposite foot forward. Allow yourself to feel steady, especially in your front foot, and choose what arm variation you'd like to do for this warrior three. It doesn't have to be the same as you used on the other side. Take a breath in to prepare, and when you're ready, shift forward. When you're feeling finished, guide yourself back to your warrior one position. And step forward into mountain. From here, we'll turn to face the long edge of the mat. Trying to move the feet to a parallel position here. We're going to be coming about halfway down into a tabletop position. So begin by lifting long through the torso and then hinging from your hips. If you've got some blocks, this would be a good time to use them. Otherwise, maybe you just put your fingertips on the ground. We're gonna add a twist. So when you're ready, reach one arm up and rotate through the spine. Then slowly lower back down and switch sides. Moving right along with your own breath rhythm.
trying to keep the hips steady and squared. When you're feeling even and balanced on both sides, bring your hands up to your hips and hinge back to a standing position. From here, we'll add a second variation of our wide-legged fold, this time revisiting that chest expansion that we did in the beginning of our practice. So, clasp your hands behind your back and feel the chest opening. If this is a little bit difficult, you could always use a strap or even a necktie or a hand towel. Breathe in to prepare, and as you breathe out, slowly hinge forward. This time coming down a little further. Eventually release your hands to the floor and then up to your hips and hinge all the way back up. We're gonna try this standing straddle fold one more time, this time bringing our hands right down to the ground between the feet. So standing up tall, breathe in. And as you hinge forward, bring your hands to the space right between your feet. You might take a little lift to extend your spine, but then on an out breath, release down into a deep forward fold. When you're ready, start to lift your torso halfway, bringing your hands to the space right underneath your shoulders. Take a little pause there, and then bring your hands back up to your hips or your thighs. Slowly hinge all the way back up to a standing position. When you're ready, take a little pivot towards the original front of your mat and step forward, coming back to mountain. From here, we'll do one more standing posture, and I'll turn to face you for this one. So we get ready to come into a tree. So you can continue to face the front of your mat or the side. Start to find balance on either foot and allow the opposite knee to point out to the side. Your hip will externally rotate. Maybe you stay right here with your toes or the ball of your foot on the floor, or you can lift up and place your foot right at your calf, or you can skip the knee joint and come up, maybe helping yourself up along a little bit to the inner thigh. Again, find a steady and gaze point and breathe. Make sure you're pressing in with your inner thigh with just as much strength as you're pressing in towards the midline with your foot. If you'd like, you can even try reaching your arms up and overhead. And when you feel ready, release back down to mountain. Take a moment to get settled again, feeling the ground underneath your feet, and then begin to move into the opposite side. You can choose the same option, or you might try a different option on this side. See what feels good to your body. As long as you're feeling steady and the breath is flowing, you're good to go.
When you're finished, bring your hands back to center and your foot back to the earth. We're going to get ready to bring our practice down to the mat now. So, if you're not at the top of your mat, make your way back there. Reach up to one more extended mountain and slowly hinge down to your forward fold. From here, we'll take a little look forward and then make our way back to downward facing dog. We'll lower our knees to the ground and take a moment in child's. From here, we'll be shifting forward, just like before, to a kneeling plank, and then hovering all the way to the earth, and getting ready for some back bends from the ground. So our first one will be locust. Right from where you are, bring your arms along your sides, palms facing the earth. When you're ready, lift the chest and the arms up off the ground, and if this feels all right, you can even lift the legs. Hold here for a count of 5 or 6 as you breathe in and out through your nose. When you're finished, bring one cheek down to the ground. Lower the body. Now, you can return to that same position, or for one more back bend from the belly, we can try bow pose. If you want to try bow, see if it's possible to reach your back ankles, or to reach back and grab your ankles. If it is possible, then pretty much everything else is the same. Lifting the chest, giving a small press into your hands, and then counting to 5 or 6. This time, take the opposite cheek to the ground. When you're ready, bring your hands to either side of your chest and start to press all the way up to a high kneeling position. You might want to put a little blanket underneath your knees for extra padding here. We're going to come into a kneeling camel position. We've already done this standing. We can start the same way with some shoulder circles. Eventually, allow your fists to rest on your sacrum. Or you might even reach back and grab your ankles. If they feel a little far away, try tucking your toes to lift them a little higher. When you're finished, do a little abdominal curl to return. And after all of that back bending, we'll take a little time in forward flexion with a nice rounded child's pose. When you're ready, bring your hands to the earth and hinge or roll up. We'll get ready for another forward fold here. This time, it will be our butterfly position, or Baddha Konasana. So, for this, bring the soles of your feet together and walk your hips back so that your pelvis is neutral or even starting to tip forward. If you find that to be challenging and your pelvis tends to tip backwards like this, then you can roll up your mat or sit up on a folded blanket. Begin by lengthening your spine, taking a strong deep breath, and then slowly hinge forward from your hips, coming to about your halfway point. When you feel ready to move a little further, do so on each out breath. You may even end up holding your feet and letting your elbows travel in front of your shins. When you're ready to come up, do so slowly, hinging upward from the hips and pausing with a long spine. From here, we're going to prepare to roll down onto our backs. Begin by straightening your legs out into a seated staff position and holding on behind one knee. This will serve as a little lever to help you as you guide yourself down onto your back. Now we'll bring both feet to the ground and come into a lying figure four, or a lying pigeon pose. Start out by crossing your right ankle over your left thigh. This might be enough, and you can just give a little press on your inner thigh and stay right here. If you feel you'd like a little deeper stretch, pick your left foot up off the ground and hold on behind your left leg. Use your right elbow to gently open up the right leg, just a little bit more. When you're ready, release your left foot back down to the ground and uncross. Now, bring your left ankle up over the right thigh. Again, you might stay right here where you are, or you might reach between that window and grab the back of your right thigh, right around your hamstrings. Eventually, release your foot down to the ground, uncross your leg, so now both feet are on the ground. For our final posture before relaxation, we'll come into a supine spine twist. So to begin, stretch both legs out long, and then draw one knee into your chest, just like we did at the very beginning of this practice. Allow that leg to cross over the midline of the body. You might even pause here and scoot your bottom hip under so that the hips are more stacked. When you do this, you might notice that your back shoulder lifts up a little bit. This can be solved by sliding the shoulders back and down. Feel free to place your hand on top of your bent knee and look away from your bent leg. Eventually, make your way back to the center, realigning your hips, or even taking them slightly past the midline so that you're already set up for the other side. Draw the opposite knee into your chest and cross the midline, coming into your lying spine twist, sliding both shoulders back and down and looking away from your bent knee. Once you've had enough time here, make your way back to center.
taking any last gentle movements that you might want before relaxation, and then making sure that your body feels comfortable and at ease for Savasana. I recommend that you take at least 5 to 10 minutes here to integrate all the wonderful effects of your practice. So feel free to hit pause on this recording and take your time. When you feel ready to return, draw your knees into your chest. Roll over to one side. And take all the time you need to press up to a seated position.
Once you arrive in your seated position, notice how your body feels, finding gratitude for the effects of your practice, and thanking yourself for unrolling your mat today and showing up. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.